EDF, Madam Anna Peláez, who also chairs the Women's Committee in the EDF and focuses mainly on the questions of equality between men and women. You have the floor.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much.
My native language, Spanish, if you don't mind. Querido presidente.
Dear President, the EDF, colleagues up here on the top table, distinguished members of the European Parliament, brothers and sisters in the disability movement, I want to share with you some 3 issues. First, how important is the Agenda 2020 and the Sustainable Development Goals for us in the disability movement? This is the real vision that we have of the future in order to reach the goal of human development. There are fundamental slogans there. Leave no one, I repeat, no one must be left behind. Now, we managed through our movement, friends here, that disability would be included. And that is included inside the development agenda, that it's included in Objective 4 when we talk about education and equality. When we talk about economic development. In 10 when we talk about the reduction of inequality. Or also in 11 when we talk about cities and sustainable communities, but also in 17 when we talk about the alliance to achieve the objectives. This objective 17 gives us the possibility to think about a disability as part of the SDGs, as fundamental for our work. We look at men and women with disabilities just as we look at number 1, the end of poverty. Number 2, to get rid of hunger. 3, the importance of health and welfare. And also 5, which is gender equality. It's alongside all of these agendas. So what we now can do is actually be fully aware that our movement is part of the 2020 agenda. And that the SDGs are an amazing opportunity for us to include in our work the defence of the rights of people living with disabilities. This is part of our political agenda. In July, in New York, 15 European countries next year will report back in their voluntary assessments on their sustainable development goals for 2030. And here we're talking about Albania, Andorra, Armenia, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Ireland, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Spain, and also Switzerland. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to ensure that these governments mention us and take us into account. The second thing that I want to mention here is that it's extremely important. What a great opportunity we have, friends here, brothers and sisters in disability, to actually link the SDGs with the CRPD and with the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. There is a great similarity, a clear link between these two mechanisms, the CRPD and the SDGs. One is the development of humanity, the other is the development of people with disabilities. And we have to ensure that the CPRD is included in the policies and in the budgets of our country, so no one is left behind. Because there's a direct link between these two. The Agenda 2030 and the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, are linked to the needs of disability. We have to ensure that we take a clear position and a proactive position to link these two toolkits. we have to ensure that at a national level we take into account the implementation of the Convention in also the SDGs. There is a series of circumstances and targets which overlap between the CRPD and the SDGs, and we have to ensure that we are part of all the debates. There are a couple of goals that people might say that have got no link to what we do, but actually I don't think you can say that. I mean, you may say that the issue, for example, of sustainable development goals and ecosystems don't link to us. But actually, even though these seem to be outside of the initial agenda relevant to us, that means all of the others are directly linked to what we're doing. The Sustainable Development Goals and the CRPD have got to be read together, and we have to link them in our work. And finally, what is the role do we have? What role do the disability movement have in this commitment for the SDGs? Well, first of all, we have got to commit to the SDG and the agenda that they set, and we have to build them into our own organisations, and we have to have a proactive position in our organisations when it comes to the Sustainable Development Goals for humanity. Also, we've got to ensure, and only we can do it, we have to ensure that our governments, that when they work in the development of their own SDG policies, that they always take into account disabilities. No one will do it for us. If we're not capable of influencing our governments, no one is going to step in and do it for us. We've got to make a direct link and ensure that these agendas are relevant to us. We have got to ensure that governments, private sector and lots of organisations, that civil society, that they are dedicating funds to the full development of the SDG agenda, and we have got to be present inside the SDG movement. We also have got to ensure via our work and via our messages to these groups that we are, as people with disabilities, making a contribution. We are also donors to these movements, and this is where the Agenda 2030 is essential for us. It's to do with cooperation with third countries, but it's also mainly to do with us. It is about our countries, what happens inside our countries, what's happening inside the European Union and also outside the European Union. Friends, representatives of organisations of people with disabilities, we've got to use the Sustainable Development Agenda in order to push forward this cooperation, in order to encourage cooperation between countries, in order to push forward this fundamental challenge that faces us in Agenda 2030. Leave no one behind. No one must be left behind. And that includes us. That includes everyone in this room, men and women, with people who as yet are not part of our job. People who are part of the disability movement who do not yet fully participate. People who are working inside the institutions, people who have got visible or invisible disabilities, people who for reasons of their disabilities are not yet fully involved. As a number of people have said, people with disabilities have a difficulty in being fully involved in these activities. But friends in the disability movement, what we have to do is leave no one behind, and I want to call particularly attention on the position of women and children with disabilities. The European Union has a whole range of tools that they can use to ensure that we respect the rights of women, but particularly we need it for women with disabilities and children with disability. One of every 16 women is a woman with disabilities, and we have to ensure that they are part of the agenda for sustainable development for the future. And please, nobody must be left behind.
Yeah.